Pensado's Place is brought to you by
We've got a triple threat returning champ. House of Rock winners, you're at the place. It's Pensado's Place.
What's up, everybody? Glad to have you this week. Great show for you. We've been planning this one for quite a while, and it's finally come to pass.
He is here.
He is here.
We'll get to him in a second. Shall we get our other stuff out of the way?
Let's do it, my friend.
By the way, how's your week? Good?
Excellent. You know, like I always say, I judge my week based on whether I like my mixes or not. So it was a good week.
So you like your mixes?
Yeah, I got to get out of that. I don't know.
Actually, that's an interesting segue, something that we've been a little bit remiss on that we should do. So, look, guys, we just want to thank you for all the inquiries and Dave's mixing and so on and so forth. We've gotten great music and great stuff, right? It's been really great.
Yeah, short answer, long answer, which I'm known for, and you guys love when I do, don't you? You know, it's not just music. Music is something you share with people, and I've been blessed to share great music with a lot of people lately.
Mm-hmm. And we're meeting really great people.
Yeah.
Too. So, you know, thanks to you guys.
You know what I just said?
Yeah, but I say it more succinctly.
Yeah, but did you actually admit you made a mistake a minute ago?
No.
You said you were
Have
remiss.
I ever done that?
Well, how to define remiss, big boy?
Well, we were remiss in that we have not thanked them. So not just me.
You weren't there. I thanked every one of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so
okay.
You made a mistake.
All right, so I'll take the one mistake for the year.
The decade.
Anyway, exactly. Anyways, we do thank you. It is, we're
seriously.
Appreciative of that, and keep them coming. You can go to our website and make all that stuff happen. Thank you for coming. We're coming to you live from the Art Institute of California, Los Angeles, from the HD studio, which of course stands for?
I'll think of something soon, but the best I can do now is Herb and Dave.
Herb and Dave. So it's not high definition, it's Herb and Dave. We want you to make sure you go to all of our social media info. You know that already, but here's one of the things you should make sure you do, which is get to our website, pensadosplace.tv. You're going to get mailing. There's mailing information for you to sign up to. That's where you'll find out stuff the quickest. Make that your portal. We got a lot more information coming there. There's a bunch of stuff coming. So make sure you get to our website. You already know Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel.
Very
Happy
important,
with that.
Very important.
Thank you, as usual, to our sponsors. Vintage King folks are in the house, as always. Jason Cropper's in the chat room. You see his picture up now on the website. And
I have a great Stump the Vintage King guy
then
question.
why don't you pose that?
Are all 500 series racks the same? Can I just buy any 500 series rack power supply and throw any module I want with impunity in there and expect it to work?
There you go. That's a good one. That's an in-depth one.
Dude, this ain't no hobby.
No question.
This is the real thing.
This is a professional
Look around
thing.
you. This is the real thing.
No doubt about it.
We got
Absolutely.
Greg Wells here. This ain't
question about
like no lightweight little To Catch a Predator show. This is the real thing.
You were cleared by the courts.
Spitting all.
You were cleared by the courts.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Back to our Vintage King friends. The House of Rock giveaway winners have been selected. They are Glenn Robinson, Adrian Lanes, Rick Juarez, Michael Sanchez, and Stephen Kelly. Will Thompson, our infamous producer, has gotten in touch with you by email. You got 48 hours to confirm that, or we have to select another winner. We don't want to do that. So answer Will's email, get back to them, because then you get to take the tour, hosted by JJP on December 3rd between 1 and 3 p.m. So you've got your winners. Get in contact with Will Thompson. Make sure you take that tour. It is very special.
It really is.
It's
I was hesitant, reticent in your world to go, and it was apart from many other things, it was just really, really cool.
Well, here's the thing I noticed is that the response to those episodes for you, knowing you as I've known you, was really, really touching. People reached out.
Just keep in mind, I got to go clean my guns and kill a few cattle and all that when I leave here. So I just want to make sure I got the macho thing going. But it touched me a lot, Herb. Yeah. I teared and I got emotional. It's one thing to heap praise on all my guests, but it's quite another to be the recipient. It's pretty humbling.
Well, it was Will and I both separately from you got the same kind of responses. It was nice to see you captured that way, and a tremendous job by JJP. Thanks to Vintage King. And then our other family people who are in the house today, actually, Avid.
Oh, Anthony?
Anthony
We
Gordon
can't
is in the
talk
house.
bad about him.
We never do. We're in some very interesting conversations about stuff that's going to happen at NAMM. We can't announce it yet. I'm telling you, we're so excited about it. We're going to rock
it's
this.
gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool.
So thanks to our Avid family, Anthony and Bobby and Claudia and Tony and Karen and all of our team. Stay tuned for that information. That's going to be good. We got a returning champ. We want to get to that. Why don't you introduce Into the Layer and let's get it going.
Okay. Greg Wells, our guest today, was most gracious in inviting us over to his place where he created so many of the songs that we're going to talk about today and so many of the hits from Apologize on down the road, and kind of gave us a little insight into the way he works and where he works. So let's run it, William.
Hey everybody, this is Will Thompson, producer for Pensado's Place. I recently had the pleasure of visiting with producer Greg Wells and his engineer Ian MacGregor at Greg's studio here in Los Angeles, California. Greg's studio has a really cool vibe and is full of incredible vintage and new instruments, microphones, outboard gear, and it's all centered around a beautiful undertone audio console from Eric Valentine. We thought it would be cool if we showed Greg and Ian's process to drum tracking. So without further ado, here's Greg Wells and Ian MacGregor showing their drum tracking process.
Okay, so on kick, I've got the ATM 25 on the inside. I've got the Kel Audio, it's kind of a FET 47 clone sort of thing on the outside. On kind of over the kick and snare, I've got the another Kel Audio mic. Snare is SM57, Beta 57 on top, SM57 on the bottom. Hat, I've got a 451. Often that'll change depending on what kind of sound we want to go for. Toms are both Gefell condensers with pads. And the overheads, or actually the underheads, are Royer 121s, although I like the 101s as well, and the 122s are also great. But being underneath the kit, they're able to kind of capture the cymbal sound in a really unique way. And one really cool thing about ribbons, most of them anyway, is the figure eight pattern, is that while they get stuff above and below the mic, they really reject sound that is to the sides. And you can really use that to your advantage with drums, and that can help kind of, alleviate some phase problems because it allows you to really reject certain things that might not be sounding great phase-wise. You're able to really focus in on what you need. So these positions change a lot depending on what I hear in the other room, but for right now, they kind of start there. This is the Royer SF24, which is like one of the best drum room mics available. It's a lot better than the spaced pair because the spaced pair, you get a lot of phase issues, and you can often get like the kick drum will be louder on one side, snare drum will be louder on the other. And when you pan them left and right, it's kind of a weird image. With this mic, you don't have to worry about that. Placement's crucial. But I like to angle it to the side a little bit so that when you're looking straight down the mic, like this, kick and snare are kind of centered up. If you go from this angle, the snare will end up sounding a little bit to one side. And again, this is something that I'll definitely tweak around the room once I get to hear it. So I think that's kind of like where I normally like to put all the drum stuff. And definitely the next step is to listen to it. And with the drummer playing and make sure, and I'll definitely come out and tweak a couple times. So the first thing I'll generally do, which I've already kind of done, is I'll go through and I will kind of make sure I have nominal level with all my compressors, all my EQs kind of bypassed and out of the chain. So, if I pull up any of these elements, I've got kind of decent signal. I'm not clipping, everything's working. And sometimes the first thing I'll do is sort of start with the real basic like kick, snare, overheads and get that really, really good phase-wise, all the polarity, make sure everything's dialed. And then I'll kind of build everything in around it and make sure everything else is working right. And oftentimes I'll do most of my drum sounds with the console just listening in mono because sometimes the stereo stuff can trick you with phase. And this way it's really easy for me to tell. If I flip the phase on a room mic or an overhead, I can hear it like right away. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start with kick. This is a kick in. And the kick in mic, I'm using a vintage 1272, and it's then going to a UTA EQ, and then it's going back to a mono optograph, Shadow Hills, kind of a really good optical compressor. The next thing is kick out. And kick out is come through one of these Avitas Brent Averill pre's into the Empirical Labs Little Freak, which is a really awesome EQ, and then into Pro Tools. Sometimes the first thing I'll do is just check and make sure that the kick in and kick out mics are all in phase. And they are. Snare top is going into one of these vintage 1272s, and it's also going to a UTA EQ channel here. And then it comes back, and I hit the snare top with a distressor, and then into a 550A. And I don't always use the 550A, but sometimes if I need a little extra, like, crunch, or I need a little extra on the bottom, I can go there. But I usually get everything I need from the UTA EQ. I've also got my bottom, which is up here on an Averill, and then it's going to a 550A. And I want to make sure these are in phase, and usually they're not. You have to flip one of them. And then I'll check out my underheads, which these are the two Royers underneath the cymbals. And these are going through the Avitas pre's into the R&D 5033 EQ, which is a really amazing EQ, and then into Pro Tools. And the first thing I'll do is just make sure they're in phase, which they're not. So I need to go move those mics around a little bit. So what I just did is when I brought up my underheads, I noticed that they were out of phase. So usually the first thing to do is just go look at the mics and move them around and try and find a place where they can both kind of be in phase better. And what I noticed is I was getting cancellation of both the snare and the kick drum, which is not good. It's not the end of the world if they end up being out of phase. You can always flip it, but you just want to make sure you can get it right. So I'll bring up my kick mic here, everything in mono. I'll actually bring up kick and snare. What I'm doing here is just making sure that kick and snare are really good in phase with the overs. So now I've just got like kick, snare, overs, kind of where I like to have them. No EQ, no compression, anything like that. And now I'll bring in the toms and kind of make sure they're also kind of sitting well with everything. Again, I'll solo the toms out with the underheads, and I'll flip phase back and forth and see what sounds better. One thing that's really important is to, when you're checking phase, like there's not a whole lot, because those ribbon mics, the way they kind of really focus on the cymbals and get rid of everything else, there's not a whole lot of, there's not a ton of toms or kick or snare in those mics. So you have to make sure that you're listening to enough of that signal to hear that it's canceling out. Because if stuff's quiet and you flip the phase, you're not gonna hear it. For hat, I just have I don't have any EQ or compression, just a 451. And one thing I'll always check is snare of the phase in the hi-hat mic. It's almost always better. If your snare top is flipped, as it often is, you almost always want to flip this. There's just always more body, and you always have that hat mic, and it's sitting right next to the snare, so if it's out of phase, it's gonna screw up your snare sound. Next thing I'll do is check out my room mics. And kind of the first room mic is just that Kel 47 right over the kick drum and snare. And you can almost get the entire drum sound from this one mic. First thing you do is check phase, kick and snare. With this mic, I'll definitely start with some EQ on the UTA. So the UTA can do so many cool things. With the filters, I can even, add top with the low pass filter, which is something that's really cool. And I can also get like a low bump from the high pass filter, getting a little extra air and a little extra kind of bump on the bottom. And I might even add some more low end kind of focused with this guy down here. And then often I will hit that pretty hard, and I'll always go back and check that against with everything. And then I'll go through and start with my stereo drum room mic. And the stereo mic is the Royer stereo ribbon, And I take that mic and I molt it out. It goes into the Avitas Pre's, and then it goes into a pair of 550Bs. And then I molt that signal, and I send one stereo pair to this the Chandler EMI limiter, which is good for pretty aggressive like compression and limiting. But then I take another pair, and those go to the pair of the levelers, which is perfect for like extreme like smashing of drums. So the first thing I'll go through is the EMI sound, and then often what I'll do is I'll add just a bunch of low end, and often I'll even shelf off some of the super top stuff so the cymbals don't get really washy. Here's the leveler. Sometimes I can go for more of a crunchy thing, or I need to check those rooms phase-wise with everything else. And now I'll just kind of go through and dial each thing a little bit more individually. Like I'll add a little more compression on the kick. Might add a little low end to that kick. A little mid-range. A little top end. And all this stuff might get tweaked a little bit once you hear it in the context of the song. Often I'll add quite a bit of like 200 to that snare top. If there's a funny ring in the snare, the UTAQ is amazing for getting rid of that because it can really get dialed. But the snare sounds pretty good. Snare bottom, add a little low end. Can I hear toms? Rack tom needs a little help. Usually I give him a little low end. I'll kind of try and match them up a little bit. If they sound a little like they're in different drum sets or something, I'll tweak them both. And I'll also hit them a little bit with this 5043. And usually at this point, I've got everything kind of ballpark. And at this point, I'll have Greg like play something and come in and check it out because he, needs to hear it and see what he wants to do. Do you want to play something and come in and check it out?
Man, that was pretty cool. I was trying to talk to Greg and watch it, and I didn't do a very good job of either. But when I get home, that's gonna be the first thing I watch. Great job, Will. Excellent job. You guys let Will know what a good job he did. We're here with Greg again. Greg Wells, one of our most requested guests to have returned.
Thanks
for having me back.
He could be the most requested. I have to add up
top 5 for sure.
Next time I get a couple of months, I'll add up the numbers and just to make for sure. But Greg, welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
Good to see you. And it's amazing. You were episode 34 or 35? 34. And man, that was like 60 episodes ago, Will.
Unbelievable.
Herb?
Clearly, because you forgot who I am. So.
Okay. Normally I have a medical excuse. This time it's DNA and ultimate stupidity, but it is combined with I'm still not 100,000%. I'm like 99.9. I got like food poisoning over the holidays. No sympathy, please. No, I'm fine now, but for some reason, a lot of my brain functions haven't come back. But you haven't been able to tell, have you?
No, other than that's why they want you to talk to Greg and hear about Greg.
Yeah. Greg, but anyway, my point was a lot of stuff has gone by. What you working on now? I think we discussed you were doing working with Katy Perry again.
We just wrote 3 songs over the last 2-3 weeks, and I'm also in the middle of Mayor Hawthorne's new album.
Oh, wow.
So it's those 2 things sort of, when one can work, the other is off touring and vice versa, and we're just both kind of moving ahead with that.
She's a good songwriter, Katy.
I honestly feel she's the best pop songwriter I've ever written with.
I mean, the consistency is really incredible with her work.
People don't know that it's her.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are her lyrics. Those are mostly her melodies, concept, absolutely hers.
Mm-hmm.
She's also probably the best A&R person I've ever met. She just has the micro and the macro fully hand in hand at all times. It's a real treat writing with her. And I actually told her just the other day, I feel like she's better than she's ever been. And she blew me away when I met her when she was still a teenager. But we she was kind of scared to start writing. She hadn't written in a couple of years. She's been touring so much, and then the whole movie promo that she did last summer, and her personal life was tough, and she hadn't written a thing, and I think she said 2 years, and so we were like, you know, what do we do? And we spent the whole first day just listening to music that she liked to kind of get the juices flowing again, and then we were both kind of scared, and we started, and it just
came out. Wow, amazing.
I'm not a writer, and I don't even play one on TV, but it's not like a bicycle. I mean, you have to constantly do it to stay sharp. I mean, you can't stop for a while and start back, especially when she writes from such personal experience. I mean, like.
I think it's all down
from
to
your experience. I mean,
it's down to belief, right? Like, you know,
confidence.
I believe I'm not a singer, so therefore I never sing and can't sing. And if I tried, I would do it very, you know, with no confidence.
You've been reading my email.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I live that.
But I'm sure if I believed I was a singer, I mean, I have a voice, I have pitch, I could probably sing. So if you just think like, oh, I have nothing to say, it's terrifying. Staring at a blank page is.
Plus, you're sitting in front of Greg Wells. That can't help. I mean,
well, forget whatever that does, which is probably for Katy not very much. But like, you know, like she's Katy Perry. It's an empire now.
On top of it.
Yeah.
So not only does she have to feel the pressure of, oh, geez, I don't have anything to say today. It's, oh, geez, I'm letting down 5,000 people on my payroll, and I got to move this whole. I keep moving everything forward.
I bear that same burden here, but I do it pretty well.
Yeah.
5,000 people on payroll.
Benevolent dictator.
Man, let's jump right in. You ready?
I think the caffeine's finding its way through my.
Today I'd like to, and I know I've already had your blessings, but I'd like to just jump into several songs of yours that I'd like to know more about. Last time we got to know you. This time we're going to focus on your skill set a little bit. On Mika, the Grace Kelly song by Mika. Some of you guys might not know him. He's a British artist. He's been compared to Freddie Mercury. I think he's an amazing artist. We discussed him a little bit on the last time Greg was on the show, but the single did really well. I think now it's probably close to 600,000 or 700,000 copies. Last time I checked, it was like 5. On that on that particular song, the first thing that strikes me is the volume of the snare. And then as I was listening, all your snares are a dB too loud. And I'm thinking, that's the coolest thing, man. The guy has a vibe with snares.
That's what happens when the drummer mixes. You know.
But I love that. I'm gonna point that out to you. And then that song exemplifies another thing I like about you. Your songs, your productions, and your mixing is like a roller coaster. It's like I'm never held at a constant, boring level. It's like and then going down this big incline, screaming, and then you take me into the bridge. And there's a couple of songs I'm gonna point out that you got the best 2 bars before the vamp of any. That you get the best 2 bars before the vamp award from Pensado's Place.
Is that intentional?
I've never heard that pointed out before.
So it's not intentional.
I don't know. I mean, you know.
Well, your tendencies are just the way you hear things, you know. I don't mean to embarrass you, but I think it's cool as hell because I can imagine it in my head with the drums down, but what you're doing is that snare drum volume allows you to keep the vocal a little louder and in my face because it's got a reference to something. If you pull the snare down, you'd have to pull the vocal down because it'd feel too loud. So it's a neat technique that our audience should study as a way to get your vocals a little louder without being perceived as overpowering the track.
It's probably my skewed perspective of having sat in a drum chair for so long, you know, so I'm hearing the drums louder than I don't know what, I love drums. That's what it is, really. Since I was a baby, I would hear the sound of drums and freak out. And nothing's changed.
You'd freak out when you heard the sound?
Freak
like
out.
in a negative way?
No, in a, what is that? What, can I do that?
Can
I touch something? You know.
Yeah.
Wow.
I tell my 2-year-old daughter this story that's a true story. When I was 3 years old, I was at the Salvation Army Christmas concert in my hometown, and we were up in the balcony. I can still remember it. And there was a man playing timpani drums in the band. And my mom could barely contain me. And so I asked her, can we please go ask that man if I can hit that drum? And my daughter wants to hear that story every day. When Daddy was a little boy, the drum and the man said fine. And, you know, and it was a big deal. And I still feel that way when I see drums. It's a little pathetic, really.
Guys, go to your streaming plug-in of choice and check out the Mika album. And he just came out with a new album, or it might be coming out. I can't remember. I haven't heard it yet, so we'll break that down next time. But another thing I noticed on all your songs is, particularly the ones you play on, the piano parts are as much a percussion part as they are a harmonic part. Like on this song, the piano is a really cool sound, but it's almost plays a bigger percussive role than it does harmonic role. Do you remember? That wasn't a live piano. It sounds like a virtual piano.
It's very much a live piano, but it's a very, very, very bright piano.
Yeah. What did you do to that? It's such a great sound.
There's a few elements that really contributed to that. We recorded Grace Kelly at Sunset Sound Studio One, which is an amazing facility with just, you know, anyway, that's a whole other discussion of that studio. I love that place.
Classic place.
Classic place.
Absolutely.
And, you know, built to record the soundtracks for Jungle Book and Mary Poppins, and it was all for Disney movies.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that's the guy that I think the family still owns it, was the main composer for those Disney kids films. And you can sort of hear the sound of, especially Jungle Book. You turn up the room mics in Studio One, and anyway, maybe I'm crazy, but I swear you can, you know, I've actually tried to replicate that thing on certain songs with different artists. So they have a piano there, I think, that normally lives in Studio 3, which is the studio that Prince blocked out for 10 years. And it's very bright, and it's just this really...
Is it a Yamaha?
I think it's not a Yamaha, it's an older piano. I think it might actually even be a Wurlitzer grand piano. I could be totally wrong about that, but I remember seeing a W. And it just has this thing to it. It's a magic. And I had the good fortune to hire Joe Ciccarelli to record that record.
Wow. Joe's
And
boy.
I get a heap of praise for the way that record sounds. Joe has so much to do with that. I mean, I'm so happily going on record saying, when you put the faders up, I didn't want to mix that record. I wanted Spike Stent to mix that record. And I had a meeting with Spike and Mika, and we were sitting at the Sunset Marquis Hotel having breakfast, and Spike loved the songs. And then he just sort of turned to me in the middle of the meeting and said, you know, these rough mixes sound almost done. Why hire me to do this? And I'm producing Maroon 5 right now, Greg, and it could be another half year before I get to mix this. Why don't you just finish them? I said, because I don't want to. And he's like, but I think you already almost have. So, and then he offered, he said, I've known him for a while. We worked sporadically over the years, and he said, look, if you want to send me a mix for a little bit of feedback, if you're stuck on something, send it to me, and I actually did on a couple songs. Then I remember him writing back saying the snare's a little dark on this one song, or maybe the toms have too much low end, or just tiny little things, and it forced me to. Took me a month to mix that record, because I knew Mika was. I didn't know it was going to become a hit record, but I knew it would be a very noticed record, especially in Europe, because he was a real high priority signing. And I was, you know, frankly crapping myself about me. I'd mixed things before, but not a lot.
You're good. You're a successful mixer. I mean, heaven's sakes.
Well, it's from studying people like your mixes. You know, that didn't make sense what I just said, but you know what I mean? People like you and your work, and other mixers that I admire. Something that JJP told me years ago is to always compare your mixes as you're working to other people's mixes. And it can be so humbling. Or sometimes you have that lovely surprise of, oh, I'm really not that far off. You know, it does still sound like we're in the same area code, at least. But yeah, that's a pretty drum-centric record, Grace Kelly, and I often get comments on how loud the kick drum is as well.
I thought the kick drum was great. There's one thing that, one particular reason I want you guys to listen to this record. From a mix perspective, the dynamic range of the vocalist must have been a nightmare, first to record and secondarily to mix, because I mean that guy goes from 0 to 180 in like 2 syllables. And so did you tame it with compression, or did you just sit there and automate every little thing?
There was like enormous amounts of compression.
Can you remember the chain? I'd love to know.
Yeah, I do, actually. It was very impactful. First of all, to further lift, if there even is a veil on that song, but just background information. That song, which has changed my career, which I didn't know that was going to happen. That song,
spectacular.
well, he really connected in Europe, and when that song came out as his first single, it was #1 in England for 7 weeks in a row.
Which is unheard of in England.
No one had ever heard of him. And then the album itself was #1 for 2 months on the European album charts. He sold 6 million records. And today that means more than 6 million records, because most people that own that record didn't
Europe's
pay
a
for
smaller
it.
market too.
I guess, yeah. I mean, France is I don't know. When I start thinking about that stuff, my eyes cross. But what I was going to say is that Grace Kelly was the first song I did with Mika. And it was a shotgun wedding, really. Tommy Mottola is the reason I got to work with Mika, and he just got both of us on the phone and said, I think you guys should try something. I don't know what song it should be. So Mika, on good faith, and that phone call, flew to Los Angeles. We had dinner the night before. We showed up the next day. We had me, Mika, and Joe Ciccarelli. And I'd rented a few instruments. I'd rented a drum kit from Ross Garfield, beautiful. Went for this sort of like 70s kind of tom sound in particular. And Ross has a lot to do with the way that the drums sound on that mix. He's so good at the drum tuning. He's a magician. And so Mika played me a bunch of demos, and I said, that Grace Kelly song you play, I really like that. Why don't we attack that? Here's where I'm really getting to. Everything on that track is one take.
No.
Wow.
Yes, and it's me playing everything. I'm playing the drums, I'm playing the piano, I'm playing the bass, I'm playing most of the guitars. We brought in Lyle Workman, I think, on the second day to overdub some more real kind of Brian May stuff. But my point is, we were just completely flying by the seat of our pants. And I didn't know if what I was doing was good or not good or going to lead to whatever. And then he went out and he cut his vocal really quickly, and his vocal was spectacular.
It's Freddie Mercury quality vocal. I mean, and I'm saying that sincerely, not.
To me, they sound very different.
I'm not
but
talking about the sound.
get,
I'm just talking about the difficulty. That vocal's.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah, it's like a Mozart opera. I think it actually does reference a Mozart opera. I forget which one. But I do remember the vocal chain, which is what you asked me about like half an hour ago before my caffeine completely took over. It was this stunning 47 that Sunset Sound has that was modified by Klaus Heine, which I've tried to buy from them and they refused to even talk about it. And then Joe Ciccarelli plugged that into his favorite 1073. And then we had 2 EQs on it. We had a little bit of API, probably 550A. Joe likes to add a tiny little bit of, 12K on top on the A, and maybe a little 100 hertz. And then we went into a Lang EQ that they have permanently in the wall there, and he added a little bit more tippy top. Maybe it's 15 or 16K.
I always use those on kick drums. I never used them on a vocal. That's pretty cool.
It's the only time I've seen someone do that, but I just remember kind of jaw dropping, like, wow, that vocal sounds amazing. And Joe likes to do parallel compressions, and he likes to do, he's always changing stuff, but I think that day was an 1176 and an LA3A, just to kind of tame. And I remember at the time, Mika's mic technique has become better, but it was pretty.
I'm not saying it's bad. I didn't mean to insinuate that. I like the dynamics. In today's world, that's kind of refreshing.
Oh yeah.
I like having to hunt for a syllable here and there. I try to do that intentionally, but nobody lets me. Okay, moving along, man. We got a lot to cover. On Waking Up in Vegas, Katy Perry. There again, the snare's about a dB loud, which I like.
Well, I didn't mix that one.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, well.
Mind you, I had more than a lot of input on it, but that's a great Serban mix, killer Serban mix.
Yeah, I love the way he got the consonants. Like, it's very rare that I think about consonants, but the consonants on that vocal, now it makes sense, because they do sound Serban-y. They're just perfect. It's just.
He's
I mean, it's like
He's a serious talent.
it enhances the ability to understand it with it being tucked in the mix a little bit, although it's not. Was it your contribution to make the chorus anthematic like that? I mean,
We worked very hard on that mix, but I have to say, and I still remind Serban of this, that his very first volley to me, the very first version of the mix that he sent to me, was already pretty incredible. And so we didn't have a lot to do to finish it, but there was very specific, there's a lot of weird sort of counter melody guitar part things in the pre-choruses in that song.
but how'd you record the vocals to get them so big and so like that's not a mix thing, it's a production thing.
Well, it's a Katy thing too. She's an incredible singer. Another thing people don't really know.
Did you do a lot of stacks? I mean,
She has a big voice. I'm not trying to avoid the question. She really has this huge, thick, gloopy tone, you know? Gloopy? Is that a
Canadians
Is that a
understand
word?
that.
Gloop.
We understand that.
Gloop? Gloopish?
It's a
Sorry.
northern thing. Gloopish.
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah. Gloopified. Stop, Greg. You know, I have to say, it's,
make a note, decaf.
Gloopalicious.
Katy is a bit of a perfectionist, and we take a long time to record her vocals, and we're both okay with that. But I remember thinking at the end of the day, that's probably one of the better vocal comps I've ever done. And I'm working with a lot of great elements already. You know, you don't have to pull a rabbit out of the hat with her vocals. She just sounds great. But something about that one really lined up. It was early days. That's one of the first things I ever did with her. So I was really like, we were both. And she produced that track with me. She had a ton of input to the parts.
Was that before You're So Gay, or was it after You're So Gay? It was after, right?
When we recorded, it was early 2005.
Wow.
Which
It
wasn't.
was before?
Yeah, it was one of the first things I ever did with her.
Oh, wow. On You're So Gay, one of my favorite trip hop songs, by the way. One of the things the snare again, the horns. What were those horns on that? The horn part.
You mean who's playing it?
Well, you're playing it, of course.
No, I don't. Oh, I mean, I play a tiny bit of trumpet, but not really. I don't really play any horns at this point. I used to. It's Jerry Hay.
Oh, you got Jerry Hay.
And
Oh,
the
yeah.
Quincy Jones, Jerry Hay horn section.
Jerry's a beast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Bill
doesn't get a lot
Reichenbach,
better.
it's
Wow.
Gary
I would
Grant,
have never guessed
Dan
that.
Higgins.
For people that don't know, I mean, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and back in the day to everything Quincy did, Jerry's got perfect pitch. He's like, he walks in and he scribbles down the part as fast as you play the song. It's like, just want to break his fingers. He's like,
I tell him, you know, because I used to listen to Off the Wall and Thriller in Canada, and just whenever the horns came in, and I'm a huge Michael fan, but I started noticing how wicked the horns were.
Incredible.
And not just the playing, but the parts themselves, like the writing of
Yeah.
those parts. Like
Yeah.
why do those trumpets sound so good? And I started reading it. Okay, Jerry Hay, oh, I see his name again, I see his name again, I see his name again. And then I met him early on when I moved to LA on a jingle session. And I was so nervous, my hands
Yeah,
went all
me
cold
too.
like they
Me
are right
too.
now, and all clammy. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say. And we're even friends on Facebook now, and he comments on my kids' pictures and stuff. And I'll tell him, like, I'm so nervous around you.
me too, me too.
He's just such a musical. Anyway, yes, it's such a treat to get to work with him.
On the new All American Rejects album that you did he do the horns on Beekeeper's Daughter?
He did not. And what happened? I wasn't there for a couple of.
A couple of their songs have horns on them. I thought was unusual. You didn't do any of them?
I mean, those are songs that I produced, but I think I remember I had to take a week off in the middle of that 4-month record. And I think all the horns went down during the week that I was, because I wasn't there for any horn recording at all. I think there was friends of theirs that did it.
Wow.
Or I can't really remember. It's a crappy answer, sorry.
Going back to You're So Gay, the horns don't sound like Jerry because they sound more like a Sgt. Pepper's kind of oompa thing, you know?
Yeah,
And,
so
and I love that.
This is hilarious. So we're working on the track. First of all, the whole caffeinated man over here, you gotta throw a lasso on me. But, that line, is something that Katy was whistling
No joke.
as I'm working on the track, and she was just whistling, just to whistle. She's a good whistler. And I looked at her and said, you let's put that on the song. No, let's just try it. And she did it, and it was great. It was like the Andy Griffith theme via trip hop on a song called You're So Gay. It was just so weird, and I said, let's do 4 tracks of that. So she quadrupled her whistling, and I think it may have been her.
She's a good whistler.
She's a good little whistler, she is. And
She
it
ranks
may
right
have
up
been,
there with David Kahn, who whistles on all his big hits.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
He's very secretive about that. He's a little secretive anyway.
Maybe I gave something away. I got to check my NDA.
I think it was her idea to turn it into a horn line.
Wow.
I wish I could take credit.
Jerry did a great job.
So he's not mimicking, but he's trying to match her whistle.
Oh, that's funny.
And do you remember that little opening piano part? Am I going too far back?
It's me playing it. I mean, I should remember it.
I can't sing it, but it's just the intro. The piano, it's kind of almost a tacky.
It's my tack piano.
Oh, that's what it is, a tack piano.
Yeah.
You really have a real upright tack with the keys all.
Yeah, thumbtacks in the hammers.
No joke.
It's a little Baldwin Spinet piano that I paid $300 for.
What a great
on
sound.
eBay.
Use that more.
I use it a lot.
That's a great sound. Okay, the new All American Rejects record. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
That's a Greg Wells record. I mean, that's all you, right? I mean, was there?
It's all of us. I mean, it was very collaborative.
I mean, in terms of engineering and producing and
well,
and writing.
yeah, I didn't write with them at all. They're very like they have a real process.
Mm-hmm. Zed.
Zed. To their whole thing, and it's Nick the guitar player and Tyson the singer, and they just they go off on trips, and if they get 2 songs out of a whole trip, they like that. They're good with this very slow speed of everything, so they write, and it was super collaborative, but it was very much like I became the 5th member of the band that they graciously let me in, to do that.
It has a whole different vibe than their other records. I mean, I know you can't say it, but there's more of you on that record than the previous record. I don't remember how many songs you done on the last record, but this record it has a Wellsian vibe. I don't know. I guess because you worked on every damn song. Skip that question.
Okay.
The vocal chain, I got to know that the mix part, not the tracking part. It's just like in my face, like nothing I've ever heard. Can you remember the chain and the effects on that song?
Again, that's Serban. We went through. I mixed a couple songs on the record, but the bulk of it is Serban. And we had a little trouble stoppy-starty with the mixing. We had another mixer who I'm a really huge fan of, and he got several songs into it, and for some reason the band wasn't digging it, and it was a bit of things just became a little weird communication-wise, and the band wanted to start again with somebody else, and I suggested Serban because I knew, especially from the mix on Waking Up in Vegas, which is kind of more of a rocky version of a pop song, that he can do it. And no one knows that Serban has a degree in jazz guitar, and he's like a huge Van Halen fan as a teenager growing up. He gets so much different music, and he really kind of knows how to make it feel. And of course, they were looking at his credits of like, Kesha and Katy Perry, and the Rejects were saying, we're not, we don't want to sound like Teo Cruz.
Right.
I said, let's just try it. And Serban killed on the first mix. He just killed it, and it rocked, and it sounded big and warm and, like not in the box. I really don't know how he does it. So his vocal thing, he's become a friend of mine, and I will just grab him by the shirt collar and go, what are you doing to the vocal? And he's like, it's really nothing. It's not a secret. It's not a big deal. And he has, on the phone, walked me through exactly what he does. And it's basically just, there's no big secret. It's like a couple of compressors, boost some real tip, tip, tip top, roll out a little bottom, put a de-esser on it, maybe a little doubling, like that doubler plugin is fantastic for that, or anything that gives you sort of +6 and -6 or +5, -5. It's kind of it, and then it's just all balances.
The at 328 in the song, that's my favorite 2 bars into a vamp ever. Is that you, the way that you morph the long vocal note into a synth part into and then goes into the vamp?
I'm pretty sure that was me sort of executive producing one of Tyson's ideas.
Oh, okay.
The singer, and the singer is, he would show up every day.
It's lost in the darkness. I can still something or other, and that last something or other is the word that goes into the echo. I love that.
Yeah, he's all about that kind of stuff.
It's great. It's really great. And on Beekeeper's Daughter, we got the horns again. What's that sound underneath the snare? It sounds like a cymbal going through Decapitator. Or did you trigger like a pink noise with the snare? There's something behind the snare that hits with the snare that goes longer that sounds like a.
We got so tweaky on that record. I don't remember that specifically, and I do actually remember the right answer to a question you asked me earlier about this song. I was there for the horns on that song. We did a big orchestral day at the Clint Eastwood scoring soundstage, whatever it's called, on the Warner Brothers lot, I guess. Huge, like you could roll a 747 into it, and we cut the horns that day. And I don't think Jerry was on that session, but it was all, a lot of the top call people on brass. I think the Rejects Friends played on another song. Sorry.
Another impression of your work is I love your intros and endings. You kind of start me off slow, but then you drop me off gently a lot of times, and they're symmetrical. They don't sound the same. A lot of times they're different parts entirely, but conceptually they give the entire process a really nice little bookend that you can start the roller coaster ride, But intros and endings, that's another award you get. On Heartbeat Slowing Down, what was the hat sound? Do you remember?
Again, major tweakdom on that one. That was a crazy beat.
Crazy beat.
I think there was a version of that beat from their songwriting demo, and then I remember kind of taking that beat over and sitting on it for like a day or two, and lots of processing and just trying to make it as weird as I could get it while still maintaining some semblance of the groove. I really wanted that one to make people spill their drink. And I think that's the best song on the record, Heartbeat Slowing Down. It's a phenomenal.
That song, guys, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about the echoes. That song is an entire course on echoes. The echoes in the verses, they're not. There's not a pattern to them. They're just wherever they felt good, and they just felt good. When you chose where those echoes were going, what was your thought process? Because I'd like to know, because it's not a pattern. It's like sometimes in some parts of the song it's on this word, and then it's not in the same place in the next verse. How do you go about deciding what word gets an echo?
A lot of that again came from the singer Tyson Ritter. He just hears all that stuff in his head. He just sees it, just like we're looking at this table. He just sees the whole layout of it, and so I usually start. When you're working with a group of people, and it sort of establishes itself early on that one or two of those people are kind of more the creative, visionary aspect of that project, and they have good ideas, then I just take the information, because the more they can bring themselves to the table, the better a record we're going to have, and the better it's all going to sound.
Do you remember what was used to create the echoes? Especially on that word right at the end of the song, the word down, that just kind of, the echo fades out. You can hear the echo very clearly. It sounds like either a Sound Toys or an Echo Farm. Do you remember?
I think that is when I really got into the Waves H delay.
Oh.
I didn't even know I had that plug-in. It came with some bundle.
Man, that's arrogant, man.
I really didn't.
you're a plug-in 1%er, man.
Occupy plug-in.
I really didn't. And the H comp, I also, I didn't even know I had that. And then started using that, and I don't know. delays, you know.
No. We're running out of time.
It's
We're
me.
gonna run out of
I'm
time.
just like,
So tee up your arm, and I'll come back
Oh
for a
man,
second.
the best song I'm not even gonna do.
And I'll come back to it. So tee up your arm. Get
Oh,
ready for batter's
batter's
box.
box.
Absolutely. You ready? You feel loose?
stream
Need
of
to stretch?
consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
Let me find my chart. Let me find my chart. Give me a second.
Pitcher is warming up, and he's looking for his
Okay.
rosin
Sit
bag.
back.
Are you ready?
Bagpipes.
You know,
Acoustic guitar.
an ancestor of mine is one of the most famous bagpipe makers in England.
He doesn't get points for that.
I just found that out. Stark
I think
bagpipes. Check it out.
I think it's over the
Henry
wall.
Stark.
That's a whole run. But anyways,
No joke. The second record I ever made in my entire career was a bagpipe record. Acoustic guitar.
Martin D35.
Ooh, herringbone.
I don't know.
Snare.
Black Beauty.
Piano. A synth piano.
Oh. Hate them all.
Oh, Greg, you lost points for that. Strings. Synth strings.
This is tough.
My audience can't go out and hire a $60,000 orchestra.
Yeah, most of the time I can't either. Okay. You know, the strings that come with Contact are incredible. And if you really get into how you can tweak the different sounds and, you know, sforzando and pizzicato and all the different, you know, you can really make that stuff jump. The East-West strings are great.
Okay, give me your favorite signal chain for real bass, live bass, acoustic bass, real bass,
What?
just bass.
But like a P bass?
Yeah.
A great P bass. An Ampeg SVT.
With the 810 cabinet.
Yeah, I think I have a 410 cabinet.
Oh, okay.
And usually no compression to record with, at least.
Okay. Mixer hat on now. Stereo bus.
In the box or out of the
I'll
box?
take whatever.
Okay, it's a lot. Do you just say everything that, or just think of one thing?
I'll take two.
All right, definitely Shadow Hills mastering compressor.
Oh, which is now on UAD.
Yes, I look forward to hearing that.
It's good.
I really look forward to hearing that. And I am a huge fan of two different things. The Spl Vitalizer is really more of a mastering tool, but on a mix or on the band
You use it with the tube or without the tube?
with the tube.
Okay.
And just there's like a setting on that I really like, and
Yeah.
it just does a thing.
It is cool.
It just does this crazy thing that I can't get anything else to do.
The UAD one's not bad, but I forget the guy's name. That guy's does some great stuff,
Dirk,
especially
I
the
think,
transient. Dirk, yeah, the transient designer. Vocals. Lead.
Am I listing a chain, or I'm just like Freudian?
Whatever comes
Let's
to
not
mind.
go Freudian. U47.
Ooh, okay. De-esser.
The Massey de-esser is my favorite one,
Yeah, me too. One last one.
and the cheapest one out there, I think.
Favorite reverb for vocals.
Bricasti.
Oh,
And my $200 Master Room Spring Reverb that I talked about last time I was here.
yeah. You know what? I started using spring reverbs after you and Tom and Andrew and Justin Niebank started talking about spring reverbs. I went back to one. But the Bricasti, talking about Sunset Sound, I use the Sunset Chamber on that a lot too, on the Bricasti.
I don't think I have that preset. That sounds good.
Well, mine's special. And then the A&M Chamber is also good. It's the newer presets. If you haven't been
Can my
updated.
Bricasti meet your Bricasti?
But if you don't have them, they'll send you the update free. It's real simple.
They're so damn expensive. I bought mine used. I'm quite proud to say.
Oh.
Because new, it's like $4,000 or $5,000, and I think I paid $3,000 for a used one.
No joke.
Well, in the interim, let me interrupt because we got people who want to ask some questions. We don't want to run out of
Including
time.
me.
So let's introduce G.I. Griffin over in our corner office. G.I., how are you?
Hello.
Good. Let's get some questions off quickly here for our guests, please.
All right, first one is from James Russier. Greg, when writing for the Katy Perry albums, how did you begin the writing process? A vocal, guitar, or piano riff? And do you reference any songs while writing to achieve a certain tone or structure?
James, man, he gets the Question of the Month award.
Wow. Every time I've written with Katy, not including the last 3 weeks, every time she walks through the door, for instance, You're So Gay, this was a typical thing, not like the movies, exactly the same thing. She has verse 1 written, melody, and some kind of outline of chords, and usually most of chorus 1. So she kind of knows what the shape and the feel of the thing is, and then she'll get stuck. And she plays some guitar, but she's not like a player. So that's how I interface with her, is helping kind of flesh the whole thing out, and helping her be sort of quality control with whatever it is. But she really thinks about this stuff so much, and it helps me look better because her concept's so strong. Does that answer the question?
Sure.
Okay.
G.I., give us another one.
All right, this
Great
next one is from Matt Fox. Greg, as a pop rock producer, how do you personally straddle the fine line of keeping your live drums organic but still have the amazingly almost unnatural polished sound that listeners have become so accustomed to listening to on today's radio?
Another great question. Good job, Matt.
Drums are tough because, often, especially, I feel like today, for the most part, pop tracks are so beat driven with more sample. There's not a lot of live drums going on. There's no guitar going on. So, I battled with it yesterday actually on a new Mayor Hawthorne song that we're starting and going to continue working on today. Sometimes I will, take a live performance of the drums. And drums are tough because it's a bit like that. Like you can get a great drum sound, but you don't know what the drums are going to be by the time it hits you. And there you are, and the song is done. Usually drums are one of the first things to go on a track, and it's hard to know how they should sound until you hit the finish line. Yeah. It's really bizarre. So the Steven Slate trigger plugin is fantastic for it's so helpful in the mix. And even if I blend in other samples of my own drums, it just helps bring a focus more to what we, as the listeners, want the drums to be. And then sometimes I'll blend in, samples from old hip hop records that I've ripped myself, like an isolated snare or whatever it is. It's different every time. Drums are tough, but when you get the drums and when you get the vocal right, everything sounds so much better.
Yeah, my dad used to say, if you have a nice watch and a nice pair of shoes, you're always dressed for anything. If you got a great drum sound and a great vocal sound, you're pretty much dressed for anything.
I would agree with that.
G.I., one more.
Next one up is JJ Boogie. Question for Greg. What is your biggest challenge when songwriting, example, writer's block, and how do you overcome it? Any tips or techniques you can share?
Man, that's a course.
I find songwriting to be the hardest thing that I do. I feel like I may have spoken a bit about this last time when I was here with you guys, but at this point, I sort of wait until I hear something in my head, like someone's playing it, like it's a radio station almost, and so that sort of eliminates a lot of the what am I going to do? Like if I don't hear that, then I don't play anything, and we don't always. Sometimes whatever that is, and I'll go to the guitar or the piano and play it, becomes the song, or sometimes it's not the song. Is that my stomach?
I got a part B to that question for you. Is writer's block primarily due to not getting something great? Because you can always get something. Should you just accept something less and move on and come back and fix it? Or is it better to wait for the something great to come along?
That is an excellent question. I just read this amazing thing written by John Steinbeck. Mice and Men, East of Eden, John Steinbeck. and it's called 6 Tips for Writing.
Henry Rowe too.
Exactly. Just search John Steinbeck 6 Tips for Writing, and it's
I've read that.
it's so good.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
That's a great tip, too. G.I., give us one more.
All right, the last one is from Boring White Guy. This is for
I'm related
Greg.
to him.
This is for Greg or Dave. I'm an assistant engineer at a studio who also writes and creates music at home and would like to transition into more of a producer, writer, mixer role professionally soon as opposed to just engineering. Any ideas or suggestions on how to initiate that transition?
Yeah, stop watching the show and just go do it, BWG. I mean, I don't mean to be a smartass, but that's the way to get good at anything. Just do it, and if you want to know if you should do it, observe what you're doing when you wake up, whatever that is. That first hour, that's what you should be doing with your life. Writers write, mixers mix, ballers ball, managers manage. Well, he starts managing. He never stops. He starts at 4 a.m. Seriously though, I want to hear Greg's response, but just do it.
Don't overanalyze.
Don't expect money to come. Don't expect the perfect environment. Just do it.
Yep.
Like my first 100 mixes were just god awful, and luckily I did them where nobody knows about them. Every once in a while, one will come up on the internet, but man, just do it. Anytime, any place, anywhere, any amount of money, just do it, and let us know where you're at in 2 years. I bet
What's
you'll
your
be where
take,
you want to
Greg?
be.
Yeah, I concur, and I would say you have to get to a place where you're not afraid to really fail and really screw up and really have your first 100. In my case, I would say my first 500 mixes were just unlistenable. I just cringe when I go back and listen to some of the stuff.
One of the discussions we've had a lot on this show is how good failure is for you.
Yes.
You learn from it. You have to embrace it. Once you fail and get through the process of failing, you come out better on the other side. Winners win because they learn what to do from failing, what not to do. Right?
There really is no failure.
Right, that's right. It's just a lesson along the way, and it's always helpful, and that's the perspective.
There's no failure.
Success can be just as harmful as failure, and there's no difference between the two. Technically, the universe doesn't know a good song from a bad song. It's just they're all just the same process. And
so the only failure that we have to contend with now is that time flies, which means that this hour has gone very quickly, which also means you have to come back.
I'll happily come back.
We have, Greg.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Now,
Likewise.
what we know and we can't talk about is we're going to be seeing you shortly in another environment, but we'll talk about that later. What a pleasure, man.
Thank you Thank you both.
Such
so
a request. Lots of changes since last time you were here, correct?
Yeah, this is all very Hollywood right now.
It's very TV.
I wish the viewers could see,
There's a lot going on,
Yeah.
and that's
continued success to the show as well. I mean, as I constantly say on and off camera to you guys, there has never been anything like this,
No.
and I really am a huge fan of the show. I've watched almost all the episodes.
Oh man, that's such an honor to hear.
And to just think of myself as a younger kid, posing questions like the one we just got asked.
God, those were good questions, weren't they?
Yeah, they were great. To be
thanks.
able to turn on your computer and watch this.
And thanks for you being here.
Yeah.
That's what helps us be successful.
Hey guys,
say goodbye.
no. On the 21 Pilots record, there's a couple of songs we didn't get to. Greg has a very easily locatable internet presence. Ask him about the vocoder effect, I can't say that word, on migraine.
Neither can I, by the way. And that band teased me mercilessly.
I know, I put the R in.
I put an R in it. It's a vocoder.
Let's lobby for that. Check that song out and get Greg talking about it. And then on migraine, and then on Ode to Sleep. You gotta listen to Ode to Sleep. It goes through tempo changes. It goes through all kind of, the roller coaster line I made up about Greg's productions, that was the song that gave me that image. You gotta listen to that, get him to discuss that, and we'll follow up on it when he's on the show in a few weeks. So thanks for hanging with us. Had a good time talking to you. A lot of information. Study the songs, because none of this is gonna help if you don't go listen to the songs. And listen to the songs, and these are songs that you can build a career off, the 5 or 6 songs we talked about. If you get those and spend time with them, study them, break them down, get in the cracks, it'll make you a better writer, a better producer, a better mixer, and a better engineer. Top flight stuff from top to bottom. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.